Today, we're going to take these slap bands from Amazon, add some of our leftover scrap vinyl to create part 2 of our vinyl organisation. Let's make this. The materials we're going to use today include a standard grip mat because we're just using vinyl, so we only need a standard grip mat. Then we've got these slap bands. I got mine on Amazon, but you can get these at Spotlight. I'm not sure how much they are, but these ones are really cheap on Amazon, and you can see they're weird colours. And then we've got some scrap vinyl. So I've got my vinyl folder that we made last week, and I've got a whole heap of scrap vinyl that I'm going to use to decorate these slap bands. We're going to create this whole project in Design Space today. So we're going to go up to the right-hand side, click on New Project. And first of all, we're going to create the slap band shape for our vinyl. So I'm going to click on the square shape. And I am going to create a rectangle that has a 20.3 centimetre width because we want it long ways, and then a 3 centimetre height. Then at each end, because our slap bands have rounded edges, we're going to create that rounded edge. So I've gone into shapes and I've chosen the oval, and I'm changing the width of the oval to 1.6, and I'm changing the height to 3. Now I've worked that out because I've measured from the corner to the corner of my slap band without the curved edge. So that's worked out our square shape. And then I've measured right through the middle, so it includes the rounded edge. Then worked out that we needed a 1.6 extra. Now, because we're trying to do a semicircle, I've worked out that we need two 1.6 circles because we're only going to use half of each of those circles. I hope that makes sense. Please just slow it down or replay the creation of this shape if those measurements don't make sense. I will put those measurements up in the corner of the screen, but please slow it down, go back and repeat, because this is the most complicated part. So if you get this right, you're sweet. Once I've put those shapes together, I'm going to highlight the lot of them, then I'm going to align them, and I'm going to align them center vertically. And then while they're still highlighted, I'm going to go down to combine, and I'm going to unite it. Once I've done that, I'm then just going to make sure that the width, so the length of it, is that 21.9 centimetre shape, because then we've got the best chance of covering the whole slap band. Yours may be different, so you need to make sure that you measure your own slap band. Yours might be thicker, yours might be longer, it might be shorter. So you need to make sure that you do your own measurements and then work it out from there. But as I said, go back, repeat, pause if you need to, so that you have it right. Then I'm going to change the colour because I want one set for my adhesive vinyl and one set for my HTV or my iron-on vinyl. Now that we've got our two colours, the next thing I want to do is create our text. Now, we're going to use one of the fonts that we used in our project last week, and if you want to check that out, it's a really good one. It was a vinyl organizer. So we're going to use KMART Access. I didn't want to use the script font, mainly because I didn't want to weed so much. But also the KMART is quite bold and quite straight to the point, so we can see what we're grabbing when we pull our vinyl out. So what I've got here, I've typed iron on to start with, and then we want to rotate it. I started with a 45-degree angle. As you can see, it was not the right angle. It was way too sharp. And so I've ended up with about a 17, 18 degree angle. And all I'm going to do is duplicate the word iron on and keep pasting it. Now, I don't know what is happening. I don't understand. And if anyone knows, let us know in the comments below. But why is there a weird square? I don't know what I've done, and it happens a couple of times. But I've clicked on one of my texts, and then for some reason the square goes around the original one, but you're moving the other one. I don't know. I don't understand. If you know, please comment below. And then what I'm going to do is align them to start with, center vertically. So I've held my shift key down, went over to the layers panel and chosen all of the iron-on. So once I've aligned it vertically, then I go back into align and I want to distribute evenly. And that means that what we've got is these iron-ons are all the same space apart. You don't have to do that. I just do it because I think it, for my head, makes it look a little bit more uniform and work better for me. But if you're not worried and you want to do yours haphazardly, or you're not worried about doing it in an even pattern, don't worry about it. But it is a really good trick to learn. So it's going up to align and distribute, and it's distribute horizontally or distribute vertically. Then I move on to adhesive, and this time I'm going to do them just horizontally. Reason being is because adhesive is quite long. The word adhesive is quite long. So I didn't want to do it on an angle because I feel like I'd have to make the text a bit too small. And then I'm going to kind of create a little pyramid style. So I'm going to have 3 of the word adhesive across the top and then 2 along the bottom. Again, I'm going to highlight all 3, go up to align. I'm going to align center vertically, and then I want to distribute horizontally. And again, it's giving even coverage across the 2. And I've grouped them, and you'll see why. It's because when I center these ones vertically, the bottom line, and then I group them, what I can do is choose both the top group and the bottom group, and I can then align them all centered horizontally. And so that's all those 3 across the top and the 3 across the bottom are all evenly spaced, but they're also in line and centered. I'm going to attach those. So I've attached the 4 iron-on words, and I've attached the 5 adhesive words. So to do that, all I've done is click on each of the words or each of the groups, and then I've attached them. The reason I want to attach them is because when I go to cut, I don't want the word adhesive to be cut over and over again, and then me having to put it all back together, because I've done all that work to align them, make sure that they're all nicely spaced, and then I go in, and not only is it going to take me longer, but it's also not going to be aligned properly because, as I've said before, I eyeball things. I don't measure things. So I have just made sure that I've attached them, and then you can see now that I've grouped them. The reason I've grouped them is just because I'm duplicating. So I'm going to do 8 of these. I think that's probably all I need. I didn't actually do a calculation, but I think 8 of each is probably going to be enough for the vinyl that I've got that's opened. I've got a bit of vinyl there that I haven't touched yet, so it's still wrapped in its plastic. But for what I have opened and what needs to be organised, I think 8 should be enough. Now that I've done that, I'm going to make sure I've saved my project, and then I am going to go to make. Now, I've got these scrap pieces of vinyl. Now, the scrap pieces of vinyl aren't as long as a whole 30 centimetre page. So you can see there that I'm trying to move things around. What I'm trying to move in particular is I've got 2 iron-ons down the bottom of the adhesive mat. So I want to first of all move those 2 iron-on text components, and I want to move them to my iron-on mat, so then I can, on one piece of vinyl, I'm doing all the same color with the words iron-on, and then on the other one I've got all the same color with the words adhesive. Now when Cricut goes to its mat, it's trying to save you as much vinyl as possible, which is fantastic, except when you are trying to do as many of these as we are. We don't want it to be so close together because it makes it really difficult to then try and weed it later and cut them. So you can see that I'm just doing some shuffling around. I'm rotating. So I've got some that are going horizontally and I've got a couple that are going vertically, just to then also help with the distribution on the vinyl and also be able to move things around so that I've got enough space between each of the text components that I'll be able to cut around them and create separate components when I'm doing my weeding. I'm just going to do the same thing with the actual slap band vinyl as well, the large pieces, just to give it a little bit of gap between each piece. That way I can weed around it a little bit easier, cut them so that I've got lots of separate pieces of that vinyl. When I hit continue, I'm just going to choose adhesive vinyl or just vinyl because all of them are, I'm just going to be using scrap vinyl, so it's a bit easier. I actually am going to choose for the adhesive, I'm using some scrap smart vinyl, so I will click on that. I'm not sure if there's a difference between the pressure. I haven't checked to see the pressure difference between just regular vinyl and the smart vinyl, but I feel like it is a tougher or thicker vinyl type, so I will make a point of choosing smart vinyl for that. So you can see here that I'm cutting everything into strips. Just doing that so that it's a little bit easier for me to do the weeding. If you've got a larger sheet, sometimes it's a little bit more tricky to weed, particularly with the text. Those slap bands I probably didn't have to cut if I didn't want to, but the text I recommend cutting around them so then you can weed a little bit more easily. So I'm going to start by weeding my text and I'm going to do the adhesive vinyl first. Now you can see here that I've used a Cricut silver vinyl. It's in my scrap vinyl, so I thought I would use that. There was a piece big enough for the whole text to fit on it, and it's just shocking. So trying to weed this is just horrendous. And look, I love my machine, but gosh, I hate the Cricut vinyl. It's just so hard to weed, and it can be really hard to actually transfer that vinyl onto anything else as well because it sticks to the transfer tape. It doesn't want to come off its backing. I don't know, I just don't enjoy it. But anyway, I'm going to speed this up for everyone. I'm going to do not only the text, but I'm also going to do the actual coloured vinyl that sits on the slap band. So with my adhesive vinyl, I'm doing adhesive in silver with the Cricut vinyl. And I am doing the backing with, I think it's some leftover HTV Ront in a maroon colour. And then for my HTV, I'm doing a navy blue and a light creamy colour for the text. So now that I'm here, you can see when I lift this off the transfer tape, you're going to see what I mean in terms of how it doesn't all stay down. Like, it's good transfer tape. It's not like that's the problem, but it's that backing in particular, I think, of the Cricut vinyl. It's so stiff And you can see that it's actually a smart vinyl. So that's even worse because it's really stiff, because it's trying to replicate the mat. And so as you're trying to lift it, like, look at this. I've got to like press it down and fold it. And then as I fold it to keep lifting, then it tries to lift too quickly because I'm not doing that even roll of the backing tape. So look, as soon as I'll be so glad when I've finished all of this scrap vinyl. I don't want to throw it out because I think it's a waste. It's not great for the environment. It can be used. It's just a really frustrating vinyl to use. Anyway, so I'm going to take the backing off. You can see that I have got the coloured vinyl ready, and now I'm doing the text. I could, if I wanted to, I could probably put it straight down onto the slap band, and I do a combination of both. But to make it more consistent in terms of trying to get this text in the center of my colored vinyl, I'm just doing it on putting the text straight down onto the red vinyl there, or the maroon colored vinyl. And then I'm scraping it down. It looks pretty cool. I reckon it's nearly in the middle there. Making sure you scrape down the back of it there. And then I'm just going to lift that backing from our maroon coloured vinyl and then transfer it onto our slap band. Now the slap band has a dip in it. So I've tried a couple of ways, and you'll see throughout the video that I've tried placing it straight down on the top. I've also gone with, because it gets stuck, so I've also gone with laying the slap band down on the vinyl, so doing it kind of back to front. Both ways have their merits, and I've done both, and it's not really, hasn't made a huge difference between the two of them. Just making sure that you get those bubbles out, because it does have that curve. So making sure that you press on one side and then flipping it the other way. It does help a little bit if you try and flatten out that slap component. Just make sure you don't curl it until you've actually got it stuck down, or else you might end up in a right kerfuffle. But I'm making sure that I'm pressing it down, and it feels like it's bubbled, but because of the coating on the outside of the slap band, so that I guess it's also a vinyl on the outside of the slap band, which has got a bit of movement to it, it feels like it's bubbling, but it's actually not. So it'll take a couple of goes to get used to, because you think see how it looks like it's lifting there, but it's actually not. So it's just that coating, or the cover, it's the cover on the outside of the slap band, the internal component actually lifts as you lift that transfer tape. And now it's like, look how easy that is. And I'm keeping that transfer tape because just you reuse it. You don't need to keep buying transfer tape over and over again. But I reckon it looks all right. So let's do the test, whether it'll actually fold over, because I wasn't actually sure if we put the vinyl on if it'd still slap around, but it actually does. So look at it. And because I've got so much of that text over the top, it doesn't matter how fat the roll is or how thin the roll is, you can work out that it's adhesive vinyl. How great is that? I think it's going to work. I think it's going to be really cool. So I'm going to do the same thing and go through all of my adhesive as well as all of my HTV vinyl. So I'm going to speed that up for all of you. So here is my craft room, as we like to call it in our house. We live in a 2-bedroom villa. So my dining room is my craft room. And we got this shelving unit from KMART because it's a nice wide fit. It goes with the rest of our furniture, but also it just looks quite nice. But you can see here that there's not a lot of storage space. I've used lots of baskets from KMART to those grey baskets in particular are all KMART versions. And right down the bottom next to my printer is where all of my vinyl lives. So you can see at the front I've got the folder that we organised last week, but then at the back of the basket are all the rolls that I have of vinyl. Now you might look at that and go, oh, that's not a lot, but for this small space, it is a lot of vinyl that I need to start using a little bit more often so that I can reduce it and have room for my next stash. So you won't be able to see, obviously we won't be able to see the slat bands in use just as you look at the box or the basket, but as you lift them up, you'll be able to very quickly determine whether or not it's an adhesive vinyl or if it's a HTV. So let's see if these work. So you can see here that I've tested a couple of them as I'm going through to make sure I've got the right one. Some of the vinyl will have whether or not it's adhesive vinyl iron-on on the inside, but usually that's just the Cricut vinyl. Otherwise, you do have to do a little bit of a lift just on a corner using your weeding tool to check if it's an adhesive vinyl or if it's an iron-on vinyl. Here are our final products. I'm not going to pretend that this is the prettiest project that I have ever done or ever shown on this channel, but I think it's nearly one of the most functional. Those rolls of vinyl will go mad if you don't tame them, and this is one really good way of doing that. We've created some cohesion between the project we did last week with our folder by using the same font that we used for our folder. Even though our colours maybe don't match our folder, but we're trying to use up our scrap vinyl. So not always is doing this going to be something that is going to be pretty. Sometimes you're just really looking for function. But I think we've done a really great job, and it's a project you really should try. This is fantastic, obviously, for using up scrap vinyl. Great idea, particularly if you've got a small space like I do and you don't have one of those amazing vinyl organizer hanger things. And you know what? As your vinyl collection increases, your need for these things will also increase. I hope you've enjoyed today's project and get in there and have a go at it. I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget you can always jump on my Instagram, head over to my Etsy store, or even check out the videos YouTube recommends for you down below.